legacy news from 6 till 10 p.m., less than 1 minute per day, all networks combined devote to Latino-Mexican issues. 100 times more to black issues, even though we're double their population.
Oh, yeah.
And being here longer, and we're the backbone of labor force, manual labor force in this country.
All right, so I think we're starting now.
Yeah.
So we start with just a soft open where we're just chatting about whatever, and then I'll do an introduction, and then we'll get into your story. And
which story do you want to get into on
cholesterol
stuff, or do you want to soften it in with the honey? Give me.
We should talk about all of it as it flows, but the cardiovascular is obviously
the
great
main
importance.
issue, of course.
But we can go into it. He'll guide it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. He couldn't hear you say that, Daniel.
Yeah.
But yeah. As much as we can squeeze in, it's just a free-flowing conversation. But the idea is people getting leverage over their health and leverage over their lives.
And acquiring knowledge.
So the reason why we're so excited to have you as a guest, John. So, hey, everybody, welcome. This is the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Davio Venturas. Once again, we are joined by the preeminent cardiologist, Dr. Federico Macy, otherwise known as Dr. Suave. We have a very exciting episode for you guys today. We're excited to bring John Mihalopoulos. Finally, I have a Greek to outnumber Federico, and we can really get to the idea of where culture came from. So welcome, John. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Bring some more Greekness in this.
Yes, we love it. So tell us about the Tenochtitlan pyramid story.
So I was in Mexico at Teotihuacan at the pyramids, and I almost got kicked out of there, by the way, because I brought too much Greekness to the pyramids. They were talking about a European that had visited there with a beard and stuff, and the theory was it was Odysseus from Greece,
or Ulysses if you do it in the English version.
Yeah, I'm not quite my English not so good sometimes. so
spoken like a true Greek.
Yeah. So inside the pyramid, I noticed there was the Greek key, and I said, "Well, there's your definition of who it was. There's the Greek key," and I kind of started talking about Greek history and stuff inside the Teotihuacan. So I was pulling away from their history and guiding it towards the Greek history, because that's what Greeks do, isn't it?
Yes. But it is that we do have the Aztecs, and certainly the prior tribes for thousands of years believe that there were tall, blonde, muscular, even blue-eyed guy that came and helped create their society and organize it. So that's the feather serpent, Quetzalcoatl is the name. And we still pay homage. It's on the Mexican flag.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, the thing about Greeks, we're always bragging about how everything started from the Greeks. Everything. You bring something up, we're going to tell you it was Greek. But what really kills me, though, is all of that it's irrelevant, because how Europe existed without chocolate is so that right there wins the argument.
Yes. And the avocado's done pretty good. It's got a pretty good run.
Yeah, but it's really hard to beat chocolate. You can't survive without chocolate.
What was the name of that movie with Johnny Depp on the French movie, I think?
For Water with Chocolate or something?
No.
That one was done by my grandfather's dentist, that movie. But that was about the Mexican Revolution, that the youngest daughter has to stay with the mom.
Right.
Doesn't marry till the mom dies.
Yeah.
Then she can marry. She's off the hook. So, no, this one was the lady that was a chocolatier. Chocolat was the name of the movie.
Yes, I remember
with,
it.
I think Binoche and the actress, a very good actress, about the magic of the Mayan chocolate.
Yeah. And it was the Aztec, too. They used to beat it to a froth and drink it kind of like a coffee. But, without that, how did civilization survive is beyond me, because you can't live without chocolate.
Absolutely.
So I took to show you the Greekness in Greeks, I took my parents to see My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and they thought it was a documentary. And I told my mom it's a comedy, and she got offended. Oh. She's like, no, it's about a good Greek family. I'm like, no, Mom, this is not normal. So
exactly.
But you could reflect that on every nationality, though.
Absolutely. In a positive way.
Of course.
So you were married to a Mexican lady?
No, she's German-Irish, but speaks not Spanish. She speaks Mexican.
Oh, she lived in Mexico.
Yeah, she's got a different
in Monterrey.
Monterrey and Mexico City, which the statue of Diana in Mexico City was donated from the Greek government. Just so you know, a little Greekness there. Oh, yeah.
I did not
Got to have some Greekness in here.
Wow. I don't think it has gold in it. I don't.
You went to school.
Ask them.
You went to school in Monterey, right?
Yes.
So you know the exact statue he's talking about.
No, that's in Mexico City.
But there is a copy, a replica in Monterey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They copied it.
Oh,
and it's beautiful in the nice part of town.
nice.
Yeah. But
So-
anyways,
So we're excited to have you on here because I was telling Federico about you a while back, and he was saying, "So is he a cardiologist?" I said, "No, I don't think so." And he said, "But you're saying that he helped patent a cardiac drug?"
Yes.
And I said, "Yeah, that's the story." And he said, "Well, that's very, very rare. We got to have him on the podcast."
Yes.
So can you please start? We're going to get into other topics. Can you please start and tell us how you, a child actor, is that
so? Yeah. So anyway, I grew up in Greece, in Athens, Greece. I was a child actor. I was on a show Paradiso Stobedion.
Oh, I know it well.
That one.
Yeah, the main character on that. But back then the TV, there's only 2 stations, and they were both controlled by the government. We were under Junta, which was a military government. So everything I said or did had to be screened through them. So it was a little different dynamic.
Right.
But anyways, back in the early 70s, my family, my dad's side of the family has high cholesterol. When I say high,
Like a familial hypercholesterolemia,
yes,
genetic.
in the 500s.
Right. So homozygous.
Yes.
No LDL receptors.
So
Your ancestors are the same ones that populated northern India
interesting.
when Alexander, because they also have that same.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's
some
where,
populations
100%.
elsewhere.
don't tell
yeah.
me, Vada. You're telling me. Oh, no.
Yeah, there's some of that.
So, anyways, because my father had it, cholesterol in Greece or in Europe was a bigger deal before it was in the U.S. So I want to say it was like 1973. They screened me. I was in 3rd or 4th grade in 73. They screened me for cholesterol, and sure enough, it was off the charts. And back then, the only drug I believe was cholestyramine, Questran. It's a
Right, the
powder. Yeah, it's derived from pine tar. It binds it in the intestines.
Right. And you have to take 4 packets a day.
And it was horrible.
Horrible. It gives you
Oh,
bloating and diarrhea.
yes. It was.
So the first study was called the LRC study, the Lipid Research Clinic study with Questran.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was in medical school, we studied that.
Yeah, which was interesting because it's derived from pine tar, and the Greeks used to call pine tar blood medicine too, which is interesting.
Yes.
But today, I think they introduced it as
Yes.
Welcall.
Welcome.
Yeah,
But the original one had a marginal effect on middle-aged men with high cholesterol.
Well-
spent a lot of money. Remember, we were talking about 1980s research.
Yeah.
well, from
Anyways.
500 cholesterol, the Questran got me down to 470, 480.
Marginal.
Very marginal,
Because your defect was something else.
genetically.
Yeah, it wasn't the synthesis of the bad cholesterol. It was
Yeah,
at the LDL receptor level.
yeah, and so my production, whether I dieted or didn't diet, didn't make a difference.
Correct.
Didn't move the needle at all.
Correct.
So I knew something's up, and I was in
You couldn't
trouble.
get rid of it
Yeah. And I had cousins dropping dead at the age of 32,
Right.
33. So,
from 3-vessel disease.
Yeah.
Heart, 3 vessels,
yes.
all blocked off. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I turned about 18, I am like, this isn't going to work. So I started looking into it on my own and doing research. And
He did the research.
yeah, and by myself is a little dangerous too.
Without social media.
Right.
Yes, this is pre-internet.
No, he actually did the research.
Yeah, so I was experimenting with stuff on myself. Like we were talking earlier,
Right.
heparin. I was injecting myself with heparin daily.
Right.
So I started getting a little bit too far out there.
And the idea was just what, to prevent blood clots?
Yes, well, heparin I still believe does other things than just thinning the blood. I think it affects the arterial wall, because that's the part that I started arguing, and how I got even in the research is back in the early 80s. I said cholesterol by itself isn't killing anybody. My brother has no cholesterol, and he has 9 stents,
Right.
and his calcium scores off the charts, and I'm at 120,
Yeah.
and I've had 500 my whole life. So I said there's inflammation. There's other factors
Exactly.
that trigger
Inflammation.
But back in the 80s, I was the odd man out.
Yes.
They looked at me because back then the pyramid is eat bagels and other inflammatory
Yeah,
items.
pro-inflammatory foods.
Yeah,
'cause
so
sugar was exonerated.
Yeah, so I was arguing with the flat earthers
Right.
back then, is what
Saying
I called it.
low fat all the time. Low fat
Yeah,
is the only
which
way to go.
I'm like, fat isn't causing this. So
Right.
Dr. East at Baylor Research, she's a friend of my cousin's, heard about what I was doing, and she kind of pulled me into the circle and wanted to see what I was doing. And my argument was my brother with no cholesterol, no anything.
Didn't have the genetics. Like
Didn't
you
have the
inherited.
genetics, nothing, but yet he's got blockage happening as
Right.
we speak.
Was he a pre-diabetic? Did he
Nothing,
have
nothing,
hypertension?
nothing.
Was he a smoker?
Nothing.
Nothing else.
Nothing.
Was he Greek?
Yeah, 100%.
And not a smoker?
I know, right? Well, he grew up here.
Sure.
That's
right.
the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And not obese.
no.
No insulin
So
resistance.
my argument was to the crew at the time. I said, "Explain to me this then. Why am I at 500 cholesterol and no blockage, no calcium score
Yeah.
like his?" And I said, "There's other factors you guys are not."
So his calcium
Edging.
score way over 400,
Yes.
and you're at
125.
125. Okay,
Yeah. Today.
So-
Back then I was 12.
right.
So
Wow.
so that's how I started getting everybody's attention, is just the comparison of me and my brother. I was like, you
Right.
explain that to me and I'll listen. If you can't, then you listen to me.
Right.
So cholesterol is an issue, the LDL side of it.
course.
The ratio to me is the key.
Yeah.
And this stuff back then was not as talked about, especially with the diet the government gave us. And this is the
Let me ask. At the time, did they measure your ApoB, the number of
that
ApoB
didn't come
particles?
out till later.
Till later.
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, the C protein, the homocysteine gene, all that stuff started happening
Later on with the
later.
Berkeley Heart Lab
Yes.
test. And
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a mechanic basically. So you learn the body once.
but your brain was working
very
to find answers.
yes. So I kept sticking to the basics. I said it's not as complicated as we think it is, and part of it is, of course, diet does play a factor, but it wasn't as simple as just eating the right foods. It's
Right.
when you eat them, how you eat them, what you eat them with, what time of the day you eat them. So it's a little bit more complicated than just eat this and you're going to live forever.
Correct.
So in the same sense, though, was a lot of the drugs that were out and the approach to each person, like the Northern Europeans being more alkali versus the acidic of the
Right.
Mediterranean. So it was way more complicated than people had anticipated. There wasn't just a magic bullet.
No, as we found out more, we realized there's a lot more that we don't know
Yes.
than what we know.
Yes.
And they tried to, I recall, maybe in your case, put you on lovastatin, Mevacor.
Yeah.
Remember
Sta-
that
and
was the
it-
first
yeah,
statin.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if you.
Oh, no,
were-
no. I was on Mevacor
You
before it
weren't.
was on the market.
Right.
Remember, I was always a guinea pig.
Yeah,
too.
with the research.
drugs-
Because you
Oh,
had such high cholesterol.
Oh yeah, these research and pharmaceuticals
Right.
were calling me up all the time. Can we borrow you? Which
Yes.
I was talking to you earlier about a drug called Mipomersen that never went to market because of me, which almost wiped out my liver.
Right.
So there's been a lot of stuff that happened before we got here, because the new drug is everybody knows Praluent, Repatha,
Right.
which is an amazing drug, is the PCSK9 protein that
Evolocumab.
yes, that that this drug attaches at the liver at the cell level to block the LDL receptors and degrade the
Yeah.
cell, which is
So
an
he-
amazing.
Is that the
He-
drug you were?
Yeah, I was involved with.
Right. So his liver makes a protein called PCSK9.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it binds to the LDL receptor. One liver cell on average, of the billions of liver cells that we have, has 60,000 LDL receptors.
Okay.
This one protein binds to it, internalizes it, so they get married, brings it inside, and unbinds from it and delivers that LDL to the lysosomal enzymes, which are the ones that destroy it. Whereas in a normal individual, the LDL receptor grabs the LDL,
Right.
it takes it in, gets rid of it, and you poop it out, and then the LDL receptor resurfaces, and it recycles 60 times on average. Some people more, some less.
So his wasn't recycling.
Well, the protein was binding it, taking it inside, having it destroyed, so you lose LDL receptors over time quickly. So the LDL keeps floating around, and his diet isn't going to do anything to
You
decrease
cannot
it.
run what the body's producing.
Right.
Yes,
And
because you need a certain level of production, because these lipid particles, lipoproteins are called, are essential for our cell membranes. So you got to have a certain amount, and for androgens, sex steroids.
But
as
he just
well.
wasn't cleaning out the excess.
Correct. It's
Yes.
like keeping all the garbage
So
in your house all the time.
Yeah, so it compounds.
He was a hoarder. You were a cholesterol hoarder.
of LDL, and
Yeah.
it compounds and
Okay.
it keeps building. So this degrades, it sticks to the cell in the liver and destroys it.
This destroys the actual LDL. It doesn't recycle. So we have a recycling plant for LDL receptors, which they keep working for a number of years.
Well, the funny part of this is cholesterol. When you were a little kid, did your parents give you cod liver oil
Yes.
or the egg tipito, the egg
Yeah,
yolk with sugar?
sure.
Yeah. That's because you need cholesterol, especially your brain.
Absolutely.
The more cholesterol, usually the smarter you become. So the word cholesterol has become so negative, and it's not. It's essential.
Agreed.
So the problem is the difference between LDL and HDL. And once you hit puberty too, the production of it doesn't need to be as high. But up until puberty, it's an essential.
It's essential, yeah. For brain development as well.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's all the brain is cholesterol.
And your sex hormones.
Yes.
I mean, you guys are Greek. You should know that.
Yeah. So, yes.
So Greeks must have very high LDL cholesterol then.
No,
if that's what creates brain function.
Part of it is testosterone too, because a lot of people with high cholesterol have high testosterone too, which is a positive and a negative. Nothing comes free.
Yes.
So it's again a broader picture than people realized.
So, anyways, this new type of drug is a monoclonal antibody, and it binds that.
Is that what you
PCSK
use
now?
now?
Yes.
And where's your cholesterol now?
So I used to be 525, 500, and it's the ratio too that you got to remember.
Right.
I used to be at 12.5 and 13-1 ratio, which anything over 5-1
It's terrible.
Is terrible. And what that means is HDL to LDL ratio.
Yeah.
And
That's what
now,
I had bad.
You were about 5.
Right.
Now you're
right at the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went from 12 and 13-1. I'm down to 2-1.
Oh, wow.
Which is less than 1 in 30,000 people have those ratios.
Yes.
That's how rare it is.
Yes.
What he had.
Yeah. And that's why every pharmaceutical company wanted me as a guinea pig.
As a guinea pig. So typically what the studies show, I believe, it's at about a 72-75% reduction in LDL.
Yes, which is unheard of compared to the statins.
Which are 30 to 50%. Like the high intensity ones, there are 2 of them, rosuvastatin and atorvastatin. 50%, 52% is about
that's
the
at the
best you're going to do.
Yeah, and that's
At best.
rare too. That's
best.
rare. Yeah.
The other one's about 30%, the less intensity statins. So I use it. I just put someone on this medication who at 47, female, 3 heart attacks already, had 5 stents over a period of, say, 5-7 years.
Wow.
Not one cardiologist, not one internist, not one primary care ever said you have familial hypercholesterolemia. She's walking around with cholesterols of 300 and something. Not as bad as you.
And it's an easy genetic test.
Yeah. So
today anyway.
Yeah, I no insurance, so I got assistance to get her on the injection. So, twice a month. Twice a month for the first little while, and when I say get her control, it'll be once a month. It's an injection. Okay? So I'm starting at the 140 milligram dose.
Yeah. So Praluent is is every other week, and then Repatha, they've got it down to once a month. But they're also working on one that'll be once a year, and another one that'll be once every 2 years. So they're getting
So the initial one that you
better
guys,
delivery system, so it seeps out gradually.
And people freak out because it is an injection. Your digestive tract would destroy it, so that's the only way to deliver it. But it's a tiny little, you don't even feel it.
Yeah, 29 gauge.
Yeah, and I think people freak out over it, but the side effects of it are probably less than your multivitamin. I mean, this thing is just incredible because they found a gene in Africa. Helen Hobbs found a gene in Africa, small group of people that had this, and they just copied it. And the delivery method and the protein. So it other than being an injection that freaks people out, it doesn't, because people think, oh, it's a shot. It's got to have big no side effects. This thing is so
I do it in the
incredible.
office. I go, yeah, here we go. Boom. Oh, you're good now.
Yeah, they don't even realize
that was it.
So if people can get past the idea of injection, this thing has the statins have off the chart side effects. This is nothing. This is compared to medicines that are out there. It's I still can't get over, and it's because they copied nature. It's not.
So you were trying to figure this out, and now we have the drug. Take us from that. How did the drug come to be? What was the the genesis?
Yeah,
which is a Greek word.
Yes, genesis. So Dr. Helen Hobbs, who's a friend of mine, she's an incredible mind, but also pitharchia. How do you say in English? Pitharchia, discipline. This woman has discipline. When she started figuring out she's onto something. We're talking like you'd see in a movie. She was working night and day to get to this finish line.
Right.
And at the time too, a lot of people were like, yeah, she was, going at it. And then Dr. East at Baylor, she's the head of the research there, who did the clinical trials, was a key factor. And she's even come to Greece. She's the one I always had the discussions too about the nutrition and foods, and they wanted to see, because we eat stuff in Greece that you can't buy anywhere else in the world too. So anyways, to get to this point, there was a lot of money spent on a lot of drugs, not in the same path, but through the liver, because everybody, trying to go through that path through the liver. The stuff in the gut, they weren't doing as much as they used to, because at the early stage, like you were saying, those were the only paths available. Drugs. So everybody was switching to the liver, and the problem with the liver is, the liver,
toxicity.
The toxicity of the other drugs, which one of them almost killed me, was but billions of dollars, and trying to get this whole group to switch to the direction of Helen wasn't easy. She had to start showing more and more performance.
What happened, let me tell you, because I know a little bit about it. There was a group of people that, for genetic reasons, had a knockout for that gene. They didn't make PCSK9. And you could feed them whatever high-fat, high-sugar diet, and their LDL remained 40, 50, 30, no matter what they ate, because they didn't have the ability to make PCSK9. Those that had homogeneous high production of PCSK9, like you, huge numbers, even though they were on a vegan diet.
Yeah, it
no
doesn't
fat.
make it. Yeah, and that's what,
as you pointed out
earlier. Because they had me on a steamed vegetable diet, and my cholesterol actually went up.
Right.
It went up because
Of
the
course.
body was like panicking. It was like, oh, we got to produce more.
Well, it goes into a biofeedback loop. We say,
Yes.
this guy's trying to starve me now.
Yeah.
You're not going to win.
Yes.
Go back to homeostasis. But that was very compelling evidence of the role that this protein was playing in this population of patients.
Yes.
And so,
was that the inspiration for you guys?
well, for her to get it funded, to get the research,
Yes,
because
she
it's a lot of
had
money.
to show why
Why.
in a path, so that
Yeah.
was showing, look, there really is a path here, and I might have a way to get to that path.
Yeah.
But the problem is, how do you convince somebody that I found these few people in Africa that carry this? I mean, it just seems like something out of a movie, because
Right.
the scientists don't work that way. It's easy for us at this table
Right.
to go to those conclusions, but it's not that way in the scientific world.
Of course. And, interestingly, I, as a cardiologist, and doing secondary prevention. So what is secondary prevention? Are patients who've already had an event. They've already had a stroke, heart attack. They've already got, significant atherosclerosis.
Yeah.
And we can talk about the wall of the artery and where it accumulates, as you pointed out earlier. And so if they don't reach target with diet, exercise, and a statin, or maybe another agent that prevents absorption like ezetimibe, then you got to go to PCSK9. And the new regulations, the new recommendations, guidelines in Europe, the European Cardiovascular Society, 55 or less, the LDL has to be to prevent progression. We're at 70. Do you know what percent get to 70 or below who've already had a heart attack or stroke? Less than 50%.
Yeah.
Less than 50%. So I see these medications are becoming more frequently used because we're not getting there. And when we embrace the European guidelines to get it to 55, yours was in the 150s, the LDL.
It was.
Right. Still over 100, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, it's about 113
Yeah, it's the ratio. That's
as of
more
last
important.
week.
Well,
His non-HCl cholesterol has gotten better, but it's still over
to his
130.
point, all my relatives in Greece who have my gene are on Praluent or Repatha. And I was looking at it, how are you guys getting it so much easier? Because it is a cost problem.
Yes.
They're going to do the statins. It's a much cheaper drug,
Yes. but
the results are not anywhere near. They clearly they need to be on Repatha or Praluent. I mean, that's just a no-brainer, but it's a money factor. How do you convince the the insurance companies? Here's what's happening, though, as this continues, just like any new drug, the price keeps dropping,
Right.
and eventually you won't even think about a statin anymore. This will eventually, I
Replace?
predict, replace it.
What do you-
especially the one that is 1 year
Yeah.
2 years.
It's going to be 2 years.
Yeah, when the patent is up, it will
Yeah,
go cheap.
there'll always be a place for the statins because does have some anti-inflammation, like Crestor
Yes.
has some anti-inflammation
Absolutely.
properties.
So that's what you
Yes.
had me on.
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're off. Right?
Yeah, so there is a place for it,
Right.
but the extent of it now, anybody who walks in a doctor's office right now for the last 15, 20 years has been statin.
The
So,
statins also, to be fair-minded, aside, they do have predictable side effects. We know what they
Yes.
are because we've been using them since the 1980s.
Yeah.
So we know the amount of myopathy, we know the amount of liver toxicity, and other side effects, central and others, including the fact that, the data does show that they decrease, 10 to 30%, somewhere in there, recurrent heart attacks and strokes. So there is also a very positive study or story with the statins. But we're not getting there with these drugs beyond 50% of where we should be. And that's where...
well, I was on 40 at one point they had me, before it went to market, I was on 80 milligrams. But
atorvastatin, right?
Yeah, and I was on 40 for the longest time with
But no-
with Azedia.
A little bit of side effects or not?
Well, yes, for me, what happens is it builds up. After about 8 months, I have to get off of it for at least a couple of weeks.
Your
My
muscles start going?
Yeah, the muscles.
Even with the CoQ10?
Yeah, no, and I'm taking every type of CoQ10 to get it down to the cell level.
Right.
Because the other thing too is, I'm glad you brought that up, is if you're doing statins, you need to be on CoQ10.
Right. Yeah.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah.
What is CoQ10?
It's an end.
That's why I'm
factor.
here.
So it's an important factor
That's why I'm
at
here.
the level of the mitochondria that allows the mitochondria to function optimally to make ATP. And statins deplete the mitochondria of CoQ10. So you need it. It won't, your power cells.
I'll simplify it. It's an enzyme that you have in your body and you need, and it's the building block of the cells. You know what the test I do to people is I look at their gums. I can tell if somebody's CoQ10 levels are low because of their gums. Yeah.
They have
Healthy gums.
periodontal disease.
Yeah. CoQ10 makes healthy gums is what I've been
Let me see your...
noticing. Yeah. Look at you guys. You guys are healthy.
Well, we actually follow the things that
So-
we learn on the podcast.
Yeah. So anyway, there'll always be a place for the statins, I think. And
Yes. Anti-ischemic too.
Yeah.
As I said, they
but
decrease strokes. and
My
heart attacks.
problem was the joints and but the muscles. Oh my God! When you're on the dosages I was on, the muscles cramped and hurt.
And if you had other drugs that may be metabolized at the liver,
Yeah.
it slows down.
And unfortunately, most of the drugs work in the liver.
Yeah.
So you can overload yourself.
Yeah, you
So
don't get rid of them.
Keeping a
as
healthy
easily.
liver too is always key.
So your numbers, what is your total cholesterol now? What's your LDL?
So yeah, my total cholesterol. Remember, I was in the 500s my whole life, and it wasn't until I went to Praluent. Now, I was on the study, so I was on Praluent years before it ever hit the market. But they never took me off of the statins either. I was on at the same time just to be safe. So when I was on both, I got it down to about 114.
the LDL 114 on both.
The total
the Atorva-
count. The total count.
Total cholesterol?
Yeah, it was the lowest I ever got. 125 is kind of where it lingered. Yeah, which
incredible.
the study even.
So
couldn't
you were on
figure
the
out-
Praluent, on the atorvastatin at 40, the ezetimibe at 10, plus probably some omega-3s.
Yes, lots of fish oils.
Yeah, omega-3.
And that's because...
And then you
that-
CoQ10.
Is that because the drugs that he was on were depleting the...
No, so the fish oil is an
different-
HD. Yeah, think of it as HDL. Helps
Increase
the HDL.
it.
Right.
Yeah, increases the HDL, the good cholesterol.
HDL is involved in reverse cholesterol transport, unloading the bad cholesterol from the vessel wall.
Okay.
It's the semi trucks.
Yeah, semi-tar. The cleaning crew. Come on.
Yeah. So, but the fish oil, and it does have some properties too, as far as anti-inflammation and
Yes.
stuff. So, everything you can think of. But the interesting part,
Did they change your diet?
So this is where I was going with next, because originally the diet didn't do anything.
Yeah, but at that level, it's going to.
Yes, at this level, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I got to watch what I eat.
Yeah,
what is up with this?
because you still are making cholesterol. So if you can say, oh, I'm on all these drugs, I can go and eat high saturated fat, lots of sugar, you're wrong.
Yeah, so this is what's interesting. And Dr. Care East, she actually came to Greece because of this. So when I was on the study, they took blood every week from me because they needed to see every little micro.
Yes, yeah.
So it was very important. Well, I go to Greece for a month and a half to 2 months every year. And they're like, oh my God, this is going to screw us up. So they said, when you're in Greece, and a friend of mine owns a lab, we just need lab work.
Yeah. So
constantly.
she flew to Athens to see you at a lab.
Yeah. No. I went to a local lab.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. If I would have been her, I would have gone.
No.
The study has to pay for my trip.
Yeah. She did.
I'm going-
She did. She showed up, and I'll get how this happened. So anyway, so when I got there the first year we did this, I'm sending her lab results. And the lab results, the first week weren't that significant. Second, third, fourth, they were just becoming more and more incredible. And to a point where they're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This lab, as soon as you get back to Dallas, within 2-3 days, you need to come in and let's get your blood work. And they do the blood work. They're like, oh my God, this thing's
the
incredible.
Greek lab worked.
Yes. They're like, how in the heck is it this significant?
Yeah.
And that's when they started taking not just the diet, but the lifestyle and everything else into consideration, because they're like, this is just unbelievable.
Right.
Because instead of a sedentary lifestyle, you were walking everywhere.
Yeah, walking, the sun. This is pre-COVID, because I've always preached vitamin D. I said, you need it. The problem in most countries, you go from no sun to full sun and it damages your skin. And the only production of vitamin D you have is your face and your hands. That's the only place that sees the sun. I said, you got to graduate into it. The problem is people go on vacation, they go into the sun, and they'll stay out there for hours at a time the first day they get there. You got to build that pigment. You got to build up to it. Sure. But you cannot replace, because vitamin D, remember, the sun produces it, but it also kills a lot of the UV rays. The sun plays a bigger part than people realize. So being in the sun, being with a diet, being with the walking everywhere, all that stuff.
Also the social connections.
And that's the other part of the mind, because it takes out stress, which is the other factor. People don't give enough weight to stress and how that starts affecting your inflammation. Your inflammation goes off the charts. And the proof I tell everybody is, when you're stressed, what does your heart rate do? Why is it changing? So if stress has no factor, then why is it changing the pace of your beat there? Yes. So that's the proof I tell everybody, to open that door, and then we can open up the discussion farther and farther in stress. But to your point, I'm getting long-winded. The ability to socialize and connect and all that is the best de-stressor, because your brain blocks everything else out. Just like on this podcast, what we're doing.
Yes.
We're focusing in on. Yeah. So this is the original meditation, I call it, is being able to understand that socializing. And that's why Greece was on the blue zones that people live the longest, is because of that socialization. The old people still feel connected and part of the community, and it keeps that mind. So the healthy mind makes a healthy body. There is a lot of truth to that. Absolutely. And I was proof of it, because they studied what I was eating, when I was eating it, what I was eating it with, the biggest meals in the midday, not at night. But the other part of it is they were looking at cortisol levels and stuff as we socialize, because a lunch in Greece is a social event.
Right.
Everybody's sitting down, talking, eating. We're not in a rush. Like, I come back
Family
here.
And friends.
I eat real fast. I got my next appointment.
Right.
Cram it down the intestine.
Neurologically, what he was doing while in Greece, he was releasing his own endogenous opioids, his own endocannabinoid system was activated. He was then releasing his own dopamine, creating that little happiness little chunks of it, every little interaction, the sun, the beach, walking, the friend that you haven't seen in a while, your mom calling you, the friends that are going to go walk or run or play a sport, whatever it is. All of this acts in unison like a symphony. And that is where the mental health aspect that you're pointing to and the neurochemistry aligns. So your dopamine levels rise to a homeostatic level.
And you sustain them there, though.
Yes.
It's not a peak.
No.
It's like going
sustained.
to a surprise birthday party, and you peaked, and then poof, and you crater.
And here's the other beautiful part of it. When you move that to a steady state, anxiety, depression, insomnia, pro-oxidant, pro-atherogenic, pro-thrombogenic milieus go by the wayside.
Yes.
Without antidepressants, anxiety meds, excessive alcohol. So alcohol becomes a social...
There was some alcohol. He was in Greece.
But it's more about digest. Believe it or not, they do digestives. But to his point, your body becomes, or your brain becomes addicted to that to handle the stress instead of the other stuff.
Correct.
So you have to force, because I tell my friends, they come visit me in Greece, I said, you got to get in this Greek rhythm.
Yes,
and
for sure.
Yeah, but the thing people don't realize is your body depends on it then. It thrives on it, and it wants it, and it seeks it, and it looks for it. And that's why you see especially in Greece, so much socialization. It is the culture, but it is an addiction.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a healthy addiction.
A very healthy addiction. That's the key. You're not depending on social media. You're not depending on stimulants to get you there.
You don't see people holding their phones the whole time during lunch or dinner.
As we
or
saw a lady walking today,
Right.
buried.
So my kids, and that's why I force myself. I go to Greece every year, and part of it is for my kids. I don't have to force them to put the phone down. It's a natural occurrence.
Right.
And they're starting to where they need it, they want it, they look for it. And it's a good addiction.
Absolutely.
And it's a healthy. So going back to the study, they finally, because remember, I started back in the 70s with this, and I knew, and I don't know how I was blessed to know this, but I knew the bigger picture from early on. But trying to get everybody's attention, because, who am I? And trying to get everybody to look at this, and how I did it is using myself as the proof, as the guinea pig.
Yeah.
So, was that the first time they'd ever seen that kind of dramatic?
Yes.
And did that get them to start thinking about the whole problem differently?
Yes.
That must have.
That's what I'm saying. Is I got their attention.
Yes.
I finally got their attention. Because remember,
by a Greek vacation.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So-
let's promote Greece. But remember the pyramid of the food chain.
Yeah, the
what the
food
government
pyramid.
was.
Yeah.
Even
The U.S. government, not the Greek government.
No, yeah. Well, the Greek government in that pyramid had a cigarette in there too. So I don't know. The hydrocarbons are sticking to the hemoglobins.
Yes. But remember, the Nixon White House set forth the task force to come up with the way Americans should eat.
Yeah.
So it took them about 4 or 5 years, 73, 77. They came out with the pyramid, right? And so
And that's the exact same time I was fighting.
Yeah,
remember?
So that pyramid was sent to the food industry, and they go, "Oh no, this won't do." Changed a few things here because the recommendation was that Americans should eat 40% less sugar.
I didn't know this.
Then-
The original.
The original said, "Here are
Wow.
recommendations. We need to eat 40% less," and that was on the task force, the final report, right? And we should consume less saturated fats too. At the time, most Americans were eating. Remember the numbers I told you?
100 pounds of sugar.
A little less than 100, probably around 90 pounds per year. And he said we should be consuming 40% less. The report said that, right? That didn't go well with the sugar industry, with the sugar lobby. So that got turned upside down. And the final, so the 1980s was the worst decade for nutrition in the history of the world. And because of the respect for the CDC, the FDA, NIH, and so on, this new pyramid went out. And that started the consumption of more sugar.
So think
worldwide.
about how it drove me crazy because I was fighting, and I was a kid.
Well, we didn't know, right?
Yeah,
you respected, you obeyed what the
18,
authority
19
said.
Years old, and everybody thought, the consensus is the Earth is flat.
Right.
You must obey.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt, by the way. But it's nice to see where we've gone to. But the thing I tell everybody is we still haven't learned everything. We're still not there.
No,
you
of course.
never, as Socrates said, I know that I know nothing on his deathbed.
Right.
And that's where we get dangerous. And that's where I got dangerous. I thought I've got that, when I was 25, 27 years old, well, I'm so smart. I know all this. And this is where, but it doesn't end there. And that's as I got older, realized this is still evolving.
Yeah.
There's no end to this.
We have
So keep
one
your
more
mind-
mechanism, but we have many to discover yet.
Yes.
And I know in 20, 30 years, those doctors are going to look back at us going, those imbeciles.
Yes. So that's
Imbéciles,
why,
no sabía nada.
Yes. So I tell, even at the research, is we get so on a train track, and that gets dangerous, including myself. You got to be able to step back and
Pull the blinders.
pull the blinders because this isn't the end. This is the beginning.
It's called humility.
Yes. But Praluent Rapatha to me was the biggest breakthrough. In Helen Hobbs.
How soon after your Greece trip did it come together?
So that part of it was not the Rapatha or Praluent. That was always in motion. This is more of the nutrition side and how other things and other factors from mental to physical to diet.
Right.
We all knew it played an effect. It's not that we haven't known, but
That dramatic.
But the dramatic part of it, and I say this because when I got off one of the experimental drugs called Mipomycin, I wasn't on anything there for a while.
Right.
In my lab results when I was in Greece, because remember, I did this every year.
Right.
And that's what really got their attention, is what the lab results were for not having anything. Now, I was still high. I mean, genetically, I'm pumping that stuff up, but the effects of it weren't as drastic because, like you were saying, is your body in a good state won't let because the cholesterol by itself isn't going to do all the harm. There's triggering mechanisms like
pro-inflammatory.
Yeah, the inflammation
to drive the cholesterol, oxidize it.
Yeah, to make it to do what it's going to, the damage it's going to do is you have to have, and that's what I was arguing is the triggering mechanism is inflammation and eating a lot of these carbs and the lifestyle we're doing.
Foods.
Yes, the processed foods, that is triggering it. So the same person with the same cholesterol and having a healthier lifestyle is going to be two different results.
But it's not just the food. Also, in a society where you're isolated, that causes stress.
Exactly.
And that's what we said. Mental,
inflammation.
It's mental, it's physical, it's diet, it's
absolutely
it's a bigger picture. But again, they knew it had an effect, but just didn't know how drastic.
Yeah. So interestingly, in the vessel wall, and your brother, for example, the one that had stents or other relatives who passed away early in life, right?
Yes.
They were building a plaque inside the vessel wall. An artery has 3 layers.
Yes.
The inner lining, the endothelium, where the nitric oxide.
Everybody drink. He said endothelium.
Yes. And then
every episode.
Yes. And then the middle layer is where this war is taking place.
Yes.
So the tissue macrophage, a white blood cell, goes in there, gets driven in there, forms a fatty, foamy cells that through inflammatory processes, the LDL comes in, gets oxidized, and a plaque grows that looks eventually like a volcano. And it grows backwards, meaning outside of the vessel, and then finally it can't, and it goes into the lumen of the vessel. And so when people do an angiogram, they go, oh, he has a 50% blockage. Well, that plaque...
You're only seeing
the surface, the iceberg, right?
It's under there.
Like the Titanic. You're not seeing what's under the water. But there's been a war, and the war has been going on for years, where the pro-inflammatory milieu is causing progressively more and more LDL to accumulate and to become oxidized. And the HDL is insufficient to get rid of it. And
the balance is off.
And then on top of that, this macrophage produces these proteinases called matrix metalloproteinases, a whole family of them that erode the plaque. So you go and do something that raises your blood pressure, that plaque bursts, and all of a sudden all this stuff is exposed to the blood, and that triggers the formation of a blood clot and a heart attack.
Yes.
And so I just did a test on him on his carotid arteries because he had some risk factors. The traditional Framingham risk factors, sugar or
basically, I'm a middle-aged man. That's enough.
But you don't need your brain. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So because if I detect any atherosclerotic burden, in any of his arteries, and just to be clear, women start to develop atherosclerotic plaque first in the arteries of their legs.
Interesting.
It's the first place. Then the carotids, then the heart, the coronaries, in that order. So if with a simple ultrasound,
but
it takes 10 minutes.
Men start in the neck first, right?
Legs.
Oh, and men as
and
well.
Neck.
Oh, I thought you said women.
No, but women initially in the legs.
Yeah,
by far. Men is concurrent. It's more systemic, and there are various reasons. One of which is estrogen. Estrogen protects women, whereas we men start building up plaque in our 20s and 30s. And if we have a terrible lifestyle and bad genetics, bad maternal nutrition,
so testosterone play a role in this at all?
Is not protective of us.
Yeah.
And it's actually pro-inflammatory.
Yeah, it's
pro-inflammatory.
Yeah.
It's derogatory.
You get a lot of muscles.
Yeah.
But there's a downside.
The bodybuilders get heart attacks in their 40s and 50s.
And the thing I've always preached to people, especially smokers, is the damage to your lungs will clear, but your arteries won't. When your arteries start to harden.
Have you been listening to our episodes?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
You're literally quoting our episodes.
Yeah. So let me say one thing about bodybuilders. If they inject testosterone for a number of years, they're accelerating their atherogenesis.
You're preaching to the choir. I have
Yeah.
a friend of mine. He's doing testosterone injections, and I'm trying to stop him. I said,
Yeah.
"You're going to explode your heart."
and those guys do a lot.
It doesn't come free. You're going to get some muscle
there's-
and your sex drive and all that, but you're borrowing. It doesn't
Benefit.
come free.
Yeah, right. You're borrowing from your
So-
future.
Yes,
That's exactly
it
right.
doesn't come free. You just took your. So later on,
Yes,
yeah.
it's better to work at it through lifestyle.
Yes.
But anyway, the point I wanted to make just to close out. So in middle-aged people who have some risk factors or a strong family history, I check their blood vessels, their coronary arteries. I'm sorry, their carotid and their iliofemoral arteries, because they're easy to do.
Yeah.
Because the coronary calcium is pretty negative in women under 50, because there hasn't been enough time to build up calcium. And in most men till the age of about 45, 50, who do not have what you have, the familial hypercholesterolemia, the gene issue, they're going to have soft plaque that's not calcific. So you can get a false sense of security if you get a coronary calcium score that's low,
Exactly.
but it's soft plaque. The plaque is already there.
It's there.
So the ultrasound
Yes.
detects it. The 3-dimensional ultrasound is the best, but it's a new equipment. It's a little more expensive. And you can measure total plaque thickness and plaque volume, okay? And then total plaque area in multiple territories, multi-territorial. So if I see someone like that at his age, I've got to work on all the risk factors and be more aggressive, including lowering that LDL below 70 and ideally below 55 to prevent progression. So we have a population of men right now in their 70s walking around with vascular dementia, not Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Because
That's why
they've been blocking
when
off.
I said you don't need your brain. I
Right,
was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's Greek, right?
Yes. So in that, my father had that, and he ended up getting dementia, and it wasn't a genetic.
We have some
dementia.
politicians that
Yes.
have
Oh, my
vascular
God.
Dementia
Yes.
that should be listening to those podcasts
Yes.
and calling us.
And it's a shame too, because if somebody was more proactive, like what you're saying, so I God,
You have to
God
take
bless you on
middle
this.
age.
Yes, because people don't realize too with your arteries, like we were saying, is that once the damage is there, it's not going
It's
away.
progressive.
There's no.
There's only been one exception. That's my old colleague. He's a bit older than I, from Baylor College of Medicine, Christy Ballantyne, who put people in a San Francisco compound to do meditation, all kinds of things. And he did manage to regress, but it was very difficult.
And it was very
minimal.
little. And it was
Right.
very
But,
little.
but, but I
the-
got to give him credit.
Oh, no.
The
It's,
the Dean Ornish
but
techniques.
people
and all
don't
that.
realize, especially the smokers, is your
Of
lungs
course.
are going to clear, but those arteries you're
No, they're there.
causing, and then the testosterone.
They're only
creams,
progress.
Yeah,
Well-
you're adding to the
We haven't said it yet, so I'll be the one. So everybody get ready to drink. It's the nitric oxide,
yeah.
and
Well, you lose your ability if the more cholesterol and more inflammation, that endothelium
Doesn't
loses-
recover.
loses its ability to make nitric oxide. That's why so many men come in and say, "Hey, blah blah blah." I go, "Okay, you're not here because you have a sore thumb. You have erectile dysfunction. How did you know?" Oh,
Yes.
I knew you were
Yes.
embarrassed, so let me address it, and then we start to find out the root cause.
go ahead, because I just thought of something really profound.
go ahead.
Well, no. When we tell our friends, because we're both Greek, we know so many smokers. We tell them, "Oh, your arteries." They don't care about that. We
tell
about
them their
if we tell
penis?
them that they're, I think that is.
Yes.
Yeah, that catches their attention
That's
because it'll get the brain. So what I tell my friends is the capillaries in your brain are going to go, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. But as soon as I tell them
The buzzo.
the puzzo, your penis is kaput,
Yeah.
they're like, what?
That's how I get young men to take their blood pressure pills, because some of them have genetic issues for hypertension,
Yeah,
and they're walking around with blood pressures normal being 120/70. We usually want everyone under 130/80,
Yeah.
just for the audience out there. Walking around 160, 180, oh, I feel fine. I go, bullshit.
yeah,
Get in here.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Well, why should I take this and my diet and this and that? Oh, because put your dick on the table and, hey, bring me the hammer. It won't work. You
Yeah.
won't feel a damn thing.
yeah.
Oh, that's not going to work. Yeah, put your woman on the phone now.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yes.
tell her you're no good.
Yes.
To go find
no, she'll
someone
tell
else.
me. She'll tell me.
Yeah.
Right.
She'll tell.
I put him on the phone.
But that's why I was trying to say. Yeah, even if you start producing nitric oxide, I say nitric. You say nitric. You
Tomato,
say
tomato, potato,
Yes.
potato,
But
potato.
even if you produce nitric oxide, if your arteries have hardened, people
like
don't
a lead
realize
pipe.
artery is a muscle vein is a tissue.
That's right.
And an artery is proactive.
The muscle has to relax.
Yeah, it opens and closes. It's proactive.
Yes.
It's dilating, constricting. But once that thing hardens,
And that's called atherosclerosis.
yeah, once you produce atherosclerosis, Greek word,
Well,
arteriosclerosis,
Exact.
that means hardening of the
the
heart, literally in Greek.
yeah,
Of the arteries.
artery,
yeah.
artero,
Yeah, the arteries, yeah.
sclerosis.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so
no.
yeah, so once the artery hardens, you can produce all the nitric oxide you want too. That muscle won't be able
Right.
to move. It's cement. It
Yeah.
turns into
It won't-
yeah.
yeah. The compliance.
So
So let me-
the reason I'm bringing
compliance
this
is about-
up is we can fix the nitric oxide. You can, but once the artery hardens, that's why I tell everybody. And I God bless you for being proactive
You have
by
to start
measuring.
early.
Yeah, as soon as you see any kind of plaque
There or
anywhere,
here.
yeah, in the carotid artery or anywhere, you got to get proactive like as quickly as possible
Yeah.
because every day that goes by and that gets damaged, it's not coming back.
Exactly. John, we have new data actually recently published that all of the risk factors are helpful in helping someone prevent atherosclerosis and the hardening you're talking about correctly. But if you have imaging, that is even a better predictor. If I see clean arteries in you, I'm like, perfect. Let's keep it there. And if you're doing something that needs to improve, let's do it. But if I already see some plaque there, you're already late in the natural history of this
Yeah.
disease. It is a systemic disease.
You're trying to slow it down.
Yeah.
If you can stop
Stop
it, even
progression.
better. But your best
Yes.
scenario is, I mean, you're trying to slow it down, and it's so non-invasive to check. Is what I don't.
It's quick.
Yeah, it's so quick, so easy, so non-invasive. I don't understand why people are afraid of the truth or going
Yeah.
to a doctor. They just don't want to face it, and they keep putting it off. But putting it off is limiting their options, and that's why I get frustrated. Is we now have some incredible drugs like Praluent, Repatha. There's
Yes.
things you can do. They're
And we know about
And
gut health
antiplatelet agents.
and preventative things as
which
well.
gut health. That's the other thing. You know, I tell
Exactly.
people Greek yogurt, higher in protein.
Yes.
Probiotics. Keep because
Exactly.
your gut is where it all starts.
We had
Literally.
a prior segment with
You met her.
the daughter of my a good friend of mine, Dr. Underwood.
Yeah.
I'm a very well-respected cardiologist. Started the Dallas Heart Group in '74, and his daughter went through a hell of a ride because of bad gut health, because she had antibiotics starting as a child, and that kills your good bacteria.
Yeah, because it can't decipher
So
good or bad. It kills both.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Takes
we
years to get it back.
right. We know we've been overusing antibiotics for decades, and I think now there's a trend towards less antibiotics unless it is absolutely indicated.
Yeah, well, with my kids, I was very proactive about that, and you know, because by the way, the rate of ear infections in countries that eat dairy, I had my kids on goat's milk, one
Right.
stomach, but the doctors were always trying to give antibiotics at the slightest, and I stopped. I literally would be proactive to the point I was using a silver spoon because that was in the early days before
Right.
antibiotics. So I was doing everything but antibiotics. But if you don't have to your point, if you don't have a healthy gut, you're going to lose a battle.
Absolutely.
You're going to lose a battle.
So how are your arteries now? How are you?
So
Tell us where you are
yeah,
on your journey.
Yeah, I'm my calcium score, which take calcium score with a grain of salt, but
Right.
it's about 125, which for my numbers,
So it stayed. It hasn't.
yeah, it hasn't
Advanced.
progressed. But for my numbers where they were to
Right.
be only there is just
Sensational.
phenomenal.
Yes.
Yes, phenomenal. So is there going to be damage? I mean, I'm not going to get out of this free. It's going to have its consequences. Praluent Repatha has been phenomenal, but again, I don't think any of it's going to completely stop it. You just got to stay on top of it.
Sure.
Mental
Yes.
health, physical health.
Well, you're way past
Diet.
30, so
Yeah, I'm 60.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you're ahead of where everybody thought.
Yeah, well,
when
they
you
didn't
first
think I
started.
would make it. Remember, all my cousins in their 30s had dropped dead.
Right.
So for me to even be here talking to you guys
It's a miracle.
Yes. In fact, the Dr. East always looks at me when I walk in. They're like, "This is just unbelievable."
Yes.
So I'm still here. But
Do any of your kids have?
yes, so I have 4 kids. 2 of them have the
gene.
the cholesterol gene.
Yeah.
And that's been my big dilemma too, because up until puberty, you need cholesterol. That's
Yes.
what your brain is. It makes them smart. You know, with my brain, I want them to have any kind of advantage they can. So get that cholesterol flowing.
Yes.
So yeah, because you know when you were younger, you did cod liver oil or the egg yolk. You did things to increase cholesterol
course.
to help the brain. The problem is with my gene, my gene hasn't matured to where because they're monitoring a handful of us globally to see where this gene, because what I used to think was a bad mutation or something derogatory, they're saying, no. This is actually part of evolution. I was born without wisdom teeth. There's other factors, and what they're
You're almost like a superior human in some ways.
Yes.
well, yes and no. Part of it, yes. Part of it, no. Because
Right.
the gene hasn't matured. This is part of evolution. There's a little. My gut's a little. There's little traces of it. What they're hoping for eventually, in generations to come with my gene, that this thing will figure out and turn off after puberty. Because up until puberty,
was great.
It's doing its job. The
that
problem,
would be epigenetics.
yes,
That's the proteins around the histones, the proteins around the DNA that can upregulate or downregulate
Yes.
gene expression.
yes,
And that is where we're going with epigenetic
That's-
therapy to be
Yes.
able to turn it off. And it'll be the same with cancer, because in cancer, specifically, say in leukemias, we have genetics that line up along a line, a particular pathway.
Yeah.
And if we can turn off the switch, the growth factor, the activating
Yes.
gene that starts the whole cascade, that's it.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a sniper. Boom.
Yeah.
Knock it out.
Well, that's so. Eventually, they're hoping that my gene will mature and evolve and develop to where it'll turn off after puberty.
Which would be
because-
ideal because then you
Yes.
have high cholesterol as a kid when you need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then and
Well,
after
then
puberty,
We're going to get, in your case, I see the next step is also in genetic engineering,
yes,
because we know where the defect is,
yeah.
right? So
But
you're,
Well,
it's not
it's
a
not
defect.
necessarily a
It's
defect.
not
It
a
might
defect,
be,
is
right.
what I'm realizing.
no,
yeah.
I mean, it's an upregulation
Yes.
of the production of this
Yes.
protein. So you can
The
downregulate
unfinished
it.
gene. I call it the unfinished gene.
Yes.
It was an advantage when you were before puberty.
Yes.
That's
For
one of the
a- for
reasons
a
you were
short
so
But then it's
smart and
going to kill.
precocious.
Yeah,
Right.
but now it's going to kill me.
Right.
So,
Well-
so we'll be able to downregulate it. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yes.
At some point,
So-
with some genetic engineering.
Yeah. So going back to your point, 4 kids, 2 of them have it.
Yeah.
And 2 don't. And I'm on a dilemma too. At what point do you start getting proactive on the cholesterol? Because I argued with their pediatricians. I'm like, I don't want to do
How
anything.
old are they?
Well, now my son's 22 and my daughter's 21. Or
The two-
23.
the two that are
Have it,
affected.
yeah, and they're closest in age. So now I need to start doing something. But my argument with the pediatricians, they want to do something when they were like 8, 9 years
No.
old. I'm
You're
like,
right,
but I'm just telling you,
You know,
the cholesterol, the word cholesterol had become
The
so
brain,
derogatory.
John, the brain matures, doesn't complete its maturation process
25.
25, 26.
Yeah.
That's when.
And that's
when.
what I told my wife, because I still have kids.
But we don't have hard data on this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like I'm
So-
telling you, quoting
so-
you a study.
No,
here.
no. There is some
But that's
truth, and
common
I can tell.
sense.
Yeah. No. I have proof of it. I have 4 kids. My oldest is married. She's 28 years old, and at 25, I got her back. It's like, and the good thing is, I haven't killed any of them. I have 4 of them, and they're still here. And it gave me light at the end of the tunnel to know at 20, and it happened. My
Right.
oldest, when she turned 25, I was like, oh my God, my kid's back. Oh, this is great. So to
Right.
your point, and that's where my dilemma is right now. Do you stop it? Do you start being proactive on the cholesterol at puberty, or do you start at 25?
I'd start
And
later.
Yeah, and that's what I chose, and their doctors are arguing with me. They're like,
The
"Oh."
pediatricians don't know this.
Yeah, but
Sorry, pediatricians.
but it's not just pediatricians; it's every doctor that I'm arguing this with. I said because until 25,
Not every doctor.
yes, thank you, sir.
I would.
God
wait.
bless you.
And again, you could be doing a yearly screen,
And that's what I've been doing
which
with
is
my
a-
son. Yeah,
here in
yeah.
the legs.
They wanted to do the calcium
No,
score,
no.
and I said that not at this age. I'm not going to put him through a.
It's
that-
not just the radiation, okay? It's minimal, but there is some.
Yes.
It's the fact that they may not have calcified.
It's not gonna
yet,
show anything.
and it could be a soft plaque.
Yes.
So, as a multi-territorial ultrasound, especially 3-dimensional ultrasound, and Dr. East will knows
No,
this,
Yes.
and we'll go. Okay, that's fine.
She's on my
Bring
side,
him in
by the
here.
way.
Go
She's
the
what?
here. Go the
She's
legs.
she agrees with me.
Okay.
Dr. East has
and
been,
the aorta as well.
Yeah, Dr. East she's so smart.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. But
Good.
I chose at 25. It is at 25 is when the brain finally matures and you get your kid back. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And
You
I
get an
made
adult.
it. I didn't kill him.
You get an adult. you see.
Yes. And it just you would have never convinced me that my kid was going to function again.
Yes. But anyways,
Smart,
that's
good grades
yeah.
and all that, but there's just something off.
The teenage rebellion.
Yes. So I chose and said, because there's 2 places you can be proactive if your kids have high cholesterol. You can do it when after puberty, or wait till 25. And I chose 25 because the body at that age, at 25, you're 5 years old. My theory is you don't start aging until you're 20. At 21, you're 1 year old. 22, 2 years old. That's when I start counting the years, believe it or not. Because that's when things, your body pre that can handle so much.
And it's just growing. We were actually just talking about that today, about because we were talking about my health path and how it was very important for me what we did to get my addiction receptors, because when I was young, as you know, I was a basketball player, and I literally ate infinity. Like, I would never get hungry. I mean, I would never get full. I could just keep eating nonstop, and then it wouldn't gain. And he was saying that that's because you were young. But
Your neurochemistry was such that you were not craving the satisfaction of food. You were using food for energy. That's it, not because it tasted great.
But then once I turned 21, or what you call your first year, all those mechanisms slowed down, and all of a sudden...
And you weren't playing as much.
Yeah. So that's why I told the doctors, I said up until 20, the body can handle quite a bit.
Right.
And
a lot of insults.
Yeah. And so 5 more years into that, 25, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to be fine.
And I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to check the carotid arteries.
The carotids, the iliofemoral, so
which,
the legs.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Aorta.
I didn't even think of that.
Because in girls,
come to the clinic.
Number one, it's more.
Well, my son's in Arkansas, and he's going to be in Denmark for a year. So
that's it. Among obviously keeping the other parameters, the blood pressure, that's great. Their weight, their body mass index, visceral fat.
So the message I'm trying to get to people out there is, with your kids, don't let the doctors start pushing cholesterol meds on kids under 25.
You know, one of my concerns with what's going on now with gender ideology and giving them puberty blockers and things like that, and in some cases, we're going to be seeing more cases of early atherosclerosis in their 30s and 40s because of certain manipulations into the endocrine system that was not meant to be, and is going to cause accelerated atherosclerosis, especially in those that are getting testosterone.
As I was going to say, the females,
the
trying
females,
to be boys,
the transgender.
That's going to be the
well, let's be
men.
careful with our language.
Yeah, no, I mean, I respect all
this
that.
This is not a political podcast, but the ones that are transitioning,
may in some cases accelerate atherosclerosis, especially if they already have a predisposition, and it will come in their 30s. With narrowing of arteries and strokes and heart attacks in their 40s.
Yeah, and to your thing, this is got nothing to do with politics. It's health.
It's human physiology.
Yeah, it's human
physiology. And then if on top of that they're exposed to what I like to call obesogens and or DNA disruptors, chemicals, organochlorides, excessive exposure to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Cigarette smoke is one of the worst things that young people can do to accelerate at early preclinical or subclinical atherosclerosis. So the exposure to these type of chemicals and insults, in addition to manipulating hormones, can be incredibly accelerating of the atherosclerotic process. And people just not even talking about it, but we are here.
And that's the problem, is nobody talks about the health side of things to the decisions. The internet is taking kids down a lot of, I'm a libertarian, to each his own. I believe, do whatever you want to do, but like my friend who's taking testosterone, not to change it. He's a guy and he's trying to be buff and his sex and all that. I said, buddy, enjoy it.
There'll be a price.
There's a price.
I have friends, as you well know, who did those kinds of anabolic steroids and testosterone early on, growth hormone, and so on. And, in their 30s, their testosterone level is less than 100. They can't get an erection. They've lost their libido.
Energy.
Yeah. And so now they have to get back on stuff just to function semi-normally.
Yeah.
And then it affects their psyche because many abuse the stuff and become toxic masculine creatures.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Insufferable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
or become addicted to it and the sex, what I call cocaine sex disease.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about cocaine.
No.
The sex serving as as if it were an opioid.
So the bigger thing I notice with my friends taking testosterone is the aggression, they're ready to argue at a drop of a hat and they're not seeing it. I'm like, dude, simmer down.
Exactly.
So you have quite a few friends that are dabbling in the old testosterone.
Oh, yes.
very
This
common.
hit the ground. And it's funny, too, because I tell everybody genetically, too, we're different in testosterone levels. Like the Asians have the least amount, and the black women are disproportionately the highest. And so it starts off with the Asians, then the Scandinavians,
Right.
which is ironic because the Greeks, the Jews, and the blacks are on the higher end, and we share some of the same anemia diseases. It's
Right.
just our little group.
Right.
So there's some pros and cons to having all that. There's not what's better. Oh, I have more. It's, you get this, but you're paying for it. It's not, like you see the gestation period or when a kid's born, when they can raise their head. The Asian kids can sit and study for 16 hours where, some of the Greek kids, they can't sit in the chair more than 10 minutes. And it's not ADHD. Some of it is testosterone.
Right.
Yes. And I tell people, give them Proscar. Don't give them Ritalin if you want to address it. Lower.
Proscar?
Proscar it's a drug to treat people with prostate.
BPH and prostate cancer.
Yeah, it's the same as Propecia, but in 5 milligrams instead of 1 milligram. Yeah. And again, I'm going out on a limb even bringing that up. But I'm like, if you're going to treat a kid that's got high testosterone with what do you call it?
Speed?
No,
That's what they give them.
No, they give them. They sedate them too. They give them so. But there's other causes getting there, is what I'm saying. But nobody wants to address, I'm different as a Greek than an Asian, or, we're all our own little packages. And
You have been listening to the podcast. That is, so we call ourselves a rebel podcast because we want to follow the line of argument wherever it leads. We have no shibboleths that we hold up high. We'll change our mind if that's where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the preventative side of it, and following the data, even if it takes us somewhere we're not supposed to. That's why I joke that you must have listened to all the podcasts before, because you're literally bringing up, we have whole segments on what you just said.
Oh, I need to watch this, because I get in a lot of arguments, especially when I tell people, if you want a badass army, get some black women. They're higher disproportionately. That's why when they menstruate, they're in miserable pain.
There was a movie made about that.
They have the highest testosterone disproportionately than even their male. So it's all, but we become so woke or politically correct that talking about something obvious in your health is, you got to watch what you say, and it's not
here, not on the Leverage podcast.
And I don't understand it, because there's nothing to write. We're all different packages. There's some pros and cons to having whatever, but there's not a better package. It's just different packages, folks.
And you have to tailor whatever your diet, nutrition to your genetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't separate them.
Well, that's why the Northern Europeans eat more meats than the Mediterraneans. They're more alkali. They can get away with it. We're very acidic. We eat lamb and stuff once or twice a year.
Right.
But we're not genetically made to handle the amount of meats that a German can do.
And then in his example, he can't have bread or cheese or corn.
I become a pre-diabetic. I have a lot of indigenous blood.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
from Mexico and
Yeah.
Probably
But
my prior ancestors in
You mean Odysseus?
in New Mexico.
You mean Odysseus?
Yes.
Him too.
Teotihuacan. But that's the thing, is it's getting harder and harder to talk about things like that that define us. We are different packages. We're different. Not better or worse. We are different.
Yeah,
and it's
different
better
gene
the
pools.
more knowledge people know about themselves genetically. Oh my God, the better. Like myself with the cholesterol. Just think, if I never examined my gene that I had this, I'd been dead.
You may not be here.
Yes.
30 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's an amazing journey. And
people
what
don't
you've
be
discovered.
afraid. Yeah, people don't be afraid of exploring yourself.
Yeah,
and it's all good.
That curiosity has also probably translated to other areas of your life.
But what I admire about you is you're pushing about being proactive.
Oh, I
Don't
am.
wait until you're,
no.
I'll deal with it later. Because again, these arteries don't come back. You want to
Yes.
get ahead of it as soon as you even suspect it.
Even, for people that do not have these genetics, like in your case, there was a study recently from Spain on 40 to 55-year-olds, and they did all the lab work, and, they all work for one bank. Okay.
Yeah.
Santander Bank. And they follow them, about 4,500 of these people, ages 40 to 55. They follow them for 4 years. They did all the ultrasounds at the start and at the end. And they let them go about their business, their diet and exercise and everything else. And they saw the progression, which was impressive, in those that already had some plaque here, and the amount of plaque that kept increasing. And those that didn't started to build some. So the more risk factors they had, like prediabetes, diabetes, hypertension, any cholesterol anomaly, smoking, family history, any of those, it just skyrocketed. So
Yeah.
40 to 60% of those that had 3 or more risk factors already had blockage in 3 or more territories. 40 to 60%.
Wow.
They've never had a stroke or a heart attack. And they weren't being treated for any of these things.
By the time people come in to see you, it's too late.
It's a bit late. I've already had a heart attack and bypass surgery.
Yeah.
The issue started 20, 30 years ago.
Exactly.
It's a 20-year process for most.
Yes.
In those that do not have a genetic issue,
Yeah.
I want to clarify. And the last thing that was amazing in that study is the ones that already had significant blockage in multiple territories, they did a brain scan, a PET scan to look at metabolism.
Oh.
And the progression was impressive. So the ones that had carotid disease, high blood pressure, were the ones that had the most impairment in the critical areas.
Oh yeah, those capillaries are the first to go.
Prefrontal cortex, memory parietal,
Yeah.
temporal areas on the left
The ones
hemisphere.
when you have those issues, the ones you use the most are the ones that get damaged the fastest.
Correct.
Yes.
So one of my things for politicians is if you're over 65, you got to have a PET scan.
Yes,
and it's
before
got to
you
show
run. Thank you.
glucose metabolism. And if it's impaired, retire.
Yes,
We're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
Pick up gardening. But those capillaries
That's the real mental health exam.
yes.
You were going to say the capillaries?
Yeah, so
Physiological.
it's those little capillaries that are
So
going to go.
small
They're very-
arterioles that go.
Yeah.
Because remember, capillaries don't have muscle.
No.
The arterioles do.
Yes.
So it's the arterioles that start to get atherosclerosis and
Yeah.
loss of compliance.
You'll get a little bit of collaterals and stuff, but not enough
Yeah.
to. So the other thing I've done, and I can't. This is me, John. Take it with a grain of salt. But I've always pushed niacin. Niacin is a vasodilator to the
It's one of the
capillaries.
vitamins we have in.
Yeah, so
Vitamin
I've always
B3.
Yeah, so I've always pushed.
Yeah.
Well, the B vitamins
The-
for the C protein,
The
and homeocysteine.
just to be clear, in the cardiovascular literature, the niacin trials were all neutral or negative. I just want to throw that out there.
That's why I'm saying you got to take this with a grain of salt because the trials that we're using were for cholesterol.
Right.
And I'm not saying to use
Correct.
niacin for cholesterol,
Right.
but if you getting dark nails,
Right.
I notice like the peripherals, like your skin, your hair, it starts getting blood flow to the capillaries to the surface. So you take the regular. So I'm push niacin for a whole different reason,
Right.
and I think it helps too with the inflammation in the arteries. So. And I'm telling you this because I did a lot of stuff and still do that's not even on the market. That's how I got everybody's attention. Because remember, I didn't get saved because of Praluent and Repatha. That's going forward. But
Right.
to get to that point, I was proactive myself. So, and niacin to me is not going to hurt you. Runners still
No,
take
no.
it, swimmers,
Yeah.
but
And people who take it at a high dose, more
'cause
than 500.
I was doing, I brought you guys.
yeah.
I brought you guys some of my honey,
Yes.
my local honey.
Well, that's we were going to
Yeah.
get to that. We're going to get to all your plugs here.
Yeah, well, no, this is, I did this as a kid in Greece, I had bees, but arthritis runs in my family pretty heavy.
Could you hold up the thing to the camera so they can
I think it's there.
see it?
Dan, can we
Not
see
that
it?
one. That camera. That one. Yeah.
Yeah. Honey, can you see it?
Johnny Be Good. My name's John. So, anyways, the reason I got back into beekeeping here in the States is my mom's side of the family has really bad arthritis. And one of the things I learned
Yeah,
from my
bee
parents,
stings.
bee stings.
Yes.
That's interesting. You know
Yes.
this. Yeah. So
I'm Greek.
you're Greek, and the Greeks use bee stings to slow down arthritis, not
arthritis.
stop it.
And it works.
Yes. Well, something's slowing it down. I don't know if it's eating the honey or the bee stings. So I started doing it. Well, this is the last of my honey. I had to give away my bees because the pool they need a lot of water and they were going in the pool and my kids and their friends swimming, the bees would get caught in their hair. And so anyways, but I started doing, again, I try to be proactive on my own. And the bee stings, I'm like, yeah, it might hurt a little bit, but it's not going to hurt me. And trying to slow down the arthritis. So,
You have arthritis a little bit?
yeah, it's there.
Osteoarthritis. You have Heberden's nodules.
Yes.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
As opposed to Bouchard's. So yeah, it's just regular garden variety osteoarthritis.
Yes.
So you told us a little bit about the honey. Before we wrap up, I really want you to tell us just a little bit about your exciting car wash. Or rather,
Truck wash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up.
So, anyways, I was in the car business. I used to own, if you're in Dallas, Middlecoff Ford, Skyline Ford, Central Kia Plano, Central Kia Louisville, Central Subaru. Anyways, I sold everything, and I'm very mechanical. I designed a machine to wash the semi truck in 5 minutes for half the price and do a better job than a hand wash. We did the prototype in Hutchins next to Love's on I-45, and so far everybody loves it because time is of the essence. Truckers can get back on the road, and I wash even underneath the truck, which nobody does.
Wow.
But I did some stuff nobody else is doing. I reclaim the water, not because I'm an environmentalist, but I move so much water. I move water like fire hydrants. So
In order to get the truck clean in 5 minutes, right?
So most car washes use a 45 horsepower pump. A truck wash might use a 65 horsepower pump. I use 5 75 horsepower pumps.
Wow.
5. And then I heat the alkali chemicals. You know, when you're washing dishes and stuff, you ever try to wash with cold
water, exactly. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So I was doing stuff that was common sense that I don't know why nobody had done it before. So the truck wash has a
Common sense is not as common as commonly sensed.
Yes.
That's a Greek saying.
Yes. And I was thinking of it. So anyways, I put all this together. There's a lot of cool stuff, and this is the prototype. So hopefully it'll go good. But
So
you're going to expand, or
yeah,
at least-
yeah.
Are you looking for investors?
What property? What size?
So
Each store is how big?
yeah. So here's you work with what you got, but the longer the building, like the optimal is a 200-foot long building, and the reason for that is
And
I have what's
how
called
high? 20 feet?
No, I mean enough to clear a semi truck, but the length is the key. And the reason I go as long as I can is I call it dwell time, or the chemical soak time. So when the truck gets sprayed with a chemical, it's not going to do any good if you put it on. Then
right.
So you got to let it sit for
So the trucks drive through. I don't want a lot of moving parts, and you want to be able to buy parts off a shelf. So I made a lot of redundancies. Like if a pump or something goes down, everything works at 75%, so the rest of it can take over. But anyways, the dwell time is a soak time. So once the truck gets sprayed with it, there's 3 different chemicals I use: alkali and acidic, and I use a citric acidic. Anyways, so the trucker drives through there very slow in a slow gear, following a light, less parts to brake. But now the chemical's doing its magic. You're giving it a chance to work.
Right.
And that's what I noticed when I was designing this. And how I came up with the design, I found a machine in Canada that washes trains. Because all the other truck washes were car washes converted into trucks. I'm like, that ain't gonna work.
Right.
This is hilarious. So I took the big stuff that does the trains, but the key was heating the chemical like you would,
Right.
and then the soak time made a huge difference.
That's why you need the
Yes, so the longer the building, the better. But you work with what you got.
Right.
So an optimal building is 200 feet long, but you can get as short as 106 feet.
What's the cost of washing one, or what are you charged per one?
It's $45, and it's 5 minutes, and it's better than any wash
Right.
you're going to get, and
Not
cheaper. And I'm also helping the environment. Is the byproduct.
By recycling the water?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm also reusing some of the chemical. I have 4. There are 4 huge swimming pools. So the sediment goes down in the first one, and I've got a conveyor belt that takes the stuff out, and it migrates. By the time it gets to the 4th one, the water's pretty clean.
How has the trial gone so far?
Great. I mean, everybody loves it, and if everything goes good, we're gonna.
So you got to locate them at the right highway.
So the
Visible.
key is So the key, and a good question. I'm next to Love's. Is my favorite, or Pilots, right next to them. So as they leave getting fueled up, they just pull in ours and get back on the road. And the one in Hutchins is across the street from the inland port. The bridge comes. So I like being by an inland port or a real port,
Right.
and next to Love's or Pilots. So it's convenient for everybody. So location.
That's where they gas up, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
they can-
So what's the next step? Obviously, the trial's going well, or I'll
So I've
repeat my
gotta
question.
make
Are you looking for investors? We have a
No.
lot of people who listen to the podcast that
Yeah.
might be interested in.
Yeah, the bigger decision I have to make is at this point in my life, I did this because I just wanted to create my Frankenstein. I wasn't doing it for the money. So I've got to make a decision. I sold it. I had 523 employees with the dealerships. I don't know if I want to
do that.
that again. And that's the problem right now because my partners.
Sounds like you want to find a partner.
Well, no, I have some partners and they want to do 200 of them, but they won't do it unless I stay in right now. And that problem is I don't want to do 200 of them. I'm excited about this idea. But I don't.
Sounds like you need to find a partner that's willing to take on that.
That's
Okay.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Somebody else.
But anyways, yeah, your quality of life is, you don't want to compromise.
So going
it.
back to the medical
Right.
side of
Yeah.
it, I could make a ton of money doing this, but it's going to be at a sacrifice that I'm
Yes.
not willing to make right
That's
now. Because if you don't have, you can have the best diet, you can exercise, but if you don't have your mental, and at this stage in my life, if I was younger, my brain would handle the stress of this better
Right.
than it is At 60, can I do it? Absolutely, I can do it. But there's a price to it.
Sure.
And I don't want to build,
Absolutely.
I call it a prison sentence. When I had the dealerships, I had 5 dealerships in Dallas. And it was
From the outside, it looked.
it was great, but I built 4 walls and created a prison that I couldn't escape from. So,
Yes.
I mean, I was very successful with it and I enjoyed it, but I don't think I want to do that at this point.
Right.
You know, the balance of life is key right now. And, you know, you're not always going to have your health. There's something more than just your health, this energy level and stuff. You know, if I can spend some time and enjoy this part of my life too, I'm still going to do something. I'm never not going to do anything because, again, staying busy. Actually,
Well, you guys are
remaining young.
you're both so similar
Yes.
in that way. You guys are always
We have to do something.
yeah.
But on your terms.
Exactly. And this is what I told my kids is success in life isn't having the big house or the fancy car or the nice clothes. Success in life is doing life on your terms. I didn't say it that way. I don't know if I can cuss on this thing.
Oh, you can.
You can.
Okay,
This is a
so-
Rebel podcast.
Thank you. Because when I was 18 years old, my goal in life, and I've had a full-time job since I was in 6th grade, by the way. My family were immigrants. We didn't have a pot to piss in. And my brother probably more successful than me. But my goal at 18 to measure success for me was to be able to say "ai gamisu" to whoever I want. And you know what that means?
Please.
Well, think of it as a doctor, cardiologist. The word gametes.
The gametes, yes.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So basically what it was at 18 years old, I wanted to be able to say "fuck you" to whoever I wanted.
Yes.
I've never done it, but just the idea that I can.
That's
So
right.
the ultimate freedom to me was not the fancy car, all that stuff, is to be able not to be trapped.
Yeah.
To be able, knowing in the back of my head, if I don't like the situation, I can say "fuck you" to whoever I wanted. That was the ultimate success to me.
Beautiful.
Well, and I think
that-
that's a perfect
But
place.
I didn't do it. I'm not
No.
arrogant in the sense.
You have the card.
Yes, it's there.
Under your sleeve.
Yes,
Right,
and
right.
just
You need
having
it.
that, I told my kids, you don't want to feel trapped. You don't want to be,
Exactly.
buying that fancy
Beholden.
car, beholden to making those payments, this and that. Yeah, you want the freedom, and it's not just about money though either. That power to be able to be at that
Right,
point.
exactly.
And just because you have it, you don't want to be a dictator. You don't want to be. That's not
Exactly.
the idea of this. This is just to have less weight on your head.
Your personal
to-
freedom
Yes, having that in your pocket
of
to
your
me,
time
yes, is the ultimate to
And
me.
controlling stress.
Well,
Yes.
on that note, I think that's a perfect note to wrap this one up.
Yes.
Thank you, John, so much for coming
Thank
on
you
the
for
podcast.
having
That's
me.
right.
My long babbling rants.
No,
No,
absolutely.
it was perfect.
Perfect.
So this is once again has been the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, Davio Venturis. We've had our guest, John Mihalopoulos, known as Yanni if you speak Greek. And this is, of course, Dr. Federico Macy, Dr. Suave. Thank you again for listening. Please like and subscribe us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. You can rate us as well. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and I'm forgetting one. I always forget one.
Did you say Facebook?
I did. I said Facebook.
Yeah. How about Twitter?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. I think you got them all.
Okay, good.
Are we on Greek channel?
Well, there's YouTube in
shall we?
Greece. All right.
Anyways,
thank
till
you
next
guys.
time.
Till next time, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.